Hi, thanks for joining us for another edition of Money TV. I'm Donald Baillargeon. So glad you could be with us. Money TV, of course, is the program all about money and what makes it happen. And there's a lot of excitement lately over China's apparent decision to allow its currency to rise against the U.S. dollar. The one thing to avoid here, however, is to trust China to have anyone's best interest at heart besides their own. Now, China's actually only doing the minimum to prevent Congress from listing China as a currency manipulator, which would lead to a squeeze on Chinese imports. And the U.S. is China's best customer. Now, China will ultimately raise its currency to where it was before the global meltdown in 2008, but that doesn't ensure that a stronger yuan will generate lots of new jobs in the United States. The reason's rather simple. China's incredible economic growth is not being shared by the Chinese consumer. Last year, total personal consumption in China was about 35% of the economy, and that's about a third lower than it was in the year 2000. Chinese family, well, they pay for their own health care, they pay for their own education, and they fund their own retirement. That means much less discretionary spending than we enjoy in the West. Young Chinese men outnumber young Chinese women by a wide margin, so they need to save money and accumulate some degree of assets if they want to get married. But the biggest thing for Westerners to understand is that while we are consumer-based economies, which chug along nicely as long as we're buying and consuming, China's just the opposite. They're a producer society, not a consumer one. In fact, China desires to become the world's #1 producer nation. China allows big U.S. and foreign companies to sell in China on condition that production takes place in China, often in joint ventures with Chinese companies. U.S. and foreign companies are flocking to China because of dramatically lower costs of labor. In Beijing, the minimum wage is equivalent to $140 per month. Now, that's less than 10% that of the U.S., but manufacturing jobs here in America demand far higher hourly rates than the minimum wage. GM is selling lots of cars in China, but it's building those cars over there. It's even designing and developing a new subcompact for China in China. Procter & Gamble is very well established in China, and most of what they sell in China is made in China. So while American-based companies are making money in China, it doesn't translate into more jobs in the United States. It translates to more jobs in China. Well, my job here is to bring you interesting interviews with small companies, but remember this toll-free number, good from anywhere in the world you're watching the program, 888-259-4449. When you do call, be sure and ask to be added to the subscription list of our Money TV newsletter. Again, 888-259-4449. You can text Money TV to 4600 or go 800. You can visit us at moneytv.net. We'd love to have you follow us on Facebook and Twitter.